A lot of people don't realize that virtue is what we call cheap signaling, you know? Like, you know, hey, let's save the planet, so let's have your children join an NGO, and let's do this. And something that infuriates me is when I enter a hotel, I have these people telling me, let's save the planet. But in fact, you're saving your own wallet. I mean, it's not, I want to save the planet, okay? But don't use the planet as an excuse. You have all these people, this is called virtues empty. There is no cheap virtue. It doesn't come for free. The only virtue you cannot fake is risk-taking. Risk-taking, and that's the highest virtue. So when people ask me, what should I be doing with my life? What should I do in the future? Work on starting a business. Symmetry means you don't give risk, you don't take risk, you see? In other words, you don't transfer your risk to others, okay? But there's something even higher, is that in society, we always value those who took more risks than others. It's the exact opposite of a bureaucrat, okay? Those who bore the scars of the risk that they took. Practically almost every society puts the warrior at the top. You want to be a count, you have to be a warrior. It doesn't come from other things. A lot of people suspect the French Revolution started when they started having what they call noblesse de robe. Noblesse de robe is people who reached the level, who became noblemen without being in war, just from desk jobs. So, I don't know if you're aware that 2/3 of Roman emperors died of violent death. 2 of them died on fighting the Persians. So this is why I tweeted back, you know, Donald Trump watch out the Persians, because 2 Roman emperors went to fight them and died there, okay? Roman emperors, okay? So the rank in society was based on risk-taking. And even during the Falkland War, the British aristocracy forced one of the sons of Queen Elizabeth to take more risk, because that's the only justification they got. You're only of higher rank than others because you've taken more risk. That's the idea. So not only, you know, you're not transferring risk, you got to bear the risk. So this is the pact you have between peasants, serfs, and the counts and dukes and the princes, is that the princes are there to defend them. So you guys do the work, I take the risk. And a lot of people see it as what we call like a peacock tail. In other words, I'm displaying my risk-taking as a badge of superiority. And it worked that way. It worked that way for a long time. Even in the United States, George Bush, the father, he was in battle, and he was a prisoner of war. When you think of Hannibal, he was first in battle. Hannibal. Napoleon, same thing. He was in the front. Julius Caesar, first in battle. And that was the rule. You had to be more exposed than others. You cannot hide from the battles. And so I thought about it and even found a theological dimension to it. So this explains, in my opinion, the Trinity. That the Christian church kept insisting, I'm Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, Lebanese, but the Christian church kept insisting, okay, that the Christ was sort of God but not God. Why? Skin in the game. A God cannot have skin in the game, cannot suffer. So I spent some time thinking about it, and I realized that effectively all of Christian theology, particularly the Orthodox theology, they were adamant. There's no divinity to the Christ. There's a Trinity to solve the problem. Because he suffered. He took risks. So effectively, the 2 most influential humans or persons or whatever, however you want to define persons, because in history were 2 people who died for their ideas. One of them is a talkative Athenian, who wouldn't stop talking, and the other is Christ. So realize that risk-taking is effectively something that we still value. And still people like to show their scars. So I discovered one thing, and I was writing Skin in the Game during the elections. And I was at a gym where I was watching the debate. It was before the primaries, the Republican primary, where Donald Trump was running against others. And I saw this image, and something weird. I noticed something weird about the picture. The New York Times had been dumping on Donald Trump, saying this fellow lost $1 billion. In my opinion, they got him elected. There's something real about losing $1 billion of your own money. So they say, oh, look how incompetent he is. Look at this idiot. He lost $1 billion. It makes him real because look at the other people. They don't look real. They look like phantoms. Okay? You're only real when you take risk. You have skin in the game. So that's the idea of skin in the game. And now, let's discuss virtue. A lot of people don't realize that virtue is what we call cheap signaling, Like, hey, let's save the planet, and so let's have your children join an NGO, and let's do this. And something that infuriates me is when I enter a hotel, I have these people telling me, let's save the planet. But in fact, you're saving your own wallet. I mean, it's not, I want to save the planet, okay? But don't use the planet as an excuse. You have all these people, this is called virtues empty. There is no cheap virtue. It doesn't come for free. The only virtue you cannot fake is risk-taking. Risk-taking, and that's the highest virtue. So when people ask me, what should I be doing with my life? What should I do in the future? I tell people when they're 18, 19, 20, work on starting a business. Take risk for others. Don't join an NGO. Don't get on a salary and then say, oh, we're saving the planet. No. Take risk for others because we need risk takers who start companies. And hopefully will graduate to one day losing $1 billion. I have an article in the New York Times saying how stupid they are. Okay? You want to get there. So start a business. You must, your obligation is to take risks, all right? Be entrepreneurs. And this society doesn't value entrepreneurs. We are the new knights. I mean, the entrepreneurs are the new knights. The new people who take risk for others, because when you think about it, New York, today is Friday, okay? You got a paycheck. Think of the people getting the paycheck and those who gave them the paycheck. 1 in 100 will be rich and the others will be starving because you need 99 entrepreneurs to fail for one of them to succeed. So we should value the entrepreneur like a knight, as someone central in risk-taking. That's the second point about skin in the game. Symmetry, but then even better than symmetry, take more risk for others. So I've discovered one thing in my own public activities, is I consider anything I say publicly that doesn't entail risk-taking on my part as verbiage. You have to have risks, take risks. Of course, outside mathematics and stuff like that. Okay, let me continue now. And also, they have a rule. Last night at dinner, people were asking me, what do you think of the euro, this? You should only talk about things if you take risks in them. If you want me to talk about Brexit, I must be long or short the British pound. Why? If I'm wrong, I pay the price. You see? It should be filtering mechanism. If you don't have a position, you don't talk about it. Now let's go beyond in epistemology, why you can only understand the world via that class of risk-taking or doing things. In my book, there is a story about a trader who wrote a book called How I Lost $1 Million. That was a long time ago. $1 million was still $1 million, all right? So that was pre-Obama, pre-bailout. It was still a lot of money, okay? So he lost $1 million trading something called green lumber, a commodity. He knew everything about green lumber. He had read every book. He knew everything about the satellites showing where lumber was, the weather pattern, the economics of it. He knew everything, everything. He had read every book, reads every magazine, has Excel spreadsheets, all kind of stuff. He lost $1 million steadily trading green lumber. He was in the same pit, not same pit where I was, but in a pit in the same exchange, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And there was a trader called Joey something, okay? And that fellow kept making money in trading many things, including green lumber. And one day, that fellow who lost $1 million discovered that Joey did not know that green lumber he thought it was freshly cut lumber. He thought it was lumber that they painted green. Okay? So, now let's go to the bottom of things. If you're a bureaucrat, you judge others on how much they know about weather patterns and whatever it is, okay? In the real world, you care about P&L, okay? It's very complex. Something Hayek was first, I think last of the economists to really understand, is that there's embedded knowledge in this thing. It's not that this guy Joey, actually his name I think is Joey Siegel, all right? It's not that Joey Siegel didn't know anything about green lumber. He knew tons of things, but it's not the things that you would think you need to know from the outside when you're a bureaucrat, okay? When you're an academic, you approach the world as this is what I need to know. No, hell no, that's not. What he knew from the inside was something completely different that you probably cannot formalize. So that is the knowledge you only acquire via techne, not episteme, by doing things. Of course, a combination of theory helps. And that is the central knowledge that cannot, that's a Hayekian argument, okay? Cannot be transmitted from central planner to bureaucrat. Cannot. But I have a little twist to that story with the following heuristic. Let's say you have to go to a hospital in New York, because you know the dynamics in New York, you know how they are. You go to a hospital, you need to have brain surgery because there's a specific brain surgery, very dangerous, but if it succeeds, it improves your sense of humor, okay? So you do that brain surgery, and you got to be able to crack jokes like nobody can, all right? Okay, so you have to do that surgery, and it's mandatory because everybody tells you you're boring, so you have to do it. So you show up at the hospital, and you have two brain surgeons. The first one looks like the idea of Hollywood would have of a brain surgeon. You know, gold-rimmed glasses, silver-rimmed glasses, sorry, gray hair, very extremely fluid demeanor, well-spoken, and on the wall you see effectively Ivy League degrees when you enter the office of the doctor. And you spend a conversation, really charming doctor, speaks very well, perfect. And then they tell you, but there's another doctor of the same rank that you have to consider. And you see that other doctor, thick fingers, he looks like a butcher, okay? He talks like someone from Brooklyn and doesn't have diplomas, means he's embarrassed with his diplomas, his background. Doesn't have great. Which doctor do you think you should pick? Okay? The first one? No. Because think about it, they're the same rank. If the fellow who looks like this guy managed to become a top brain surgeon in spite of every single possible prejudice you can have against him, all right? It means that he's got to be much, much better than the other guy, okay? And this is when you have contact with reality, real skills appear. Now think about it in law, for example. This is common. To work for the government, all the lawyers come from Ivy League schools. All the lawyers. The top 20, if you're not, no government jobs. Now go look at real lawyers in law firms, and they tell you, they come, the schools you didn't know existed, all right? The ones who are the rainmaker, the top lawyers. So really, this is contact with reality versus perception, because in the end, a surgeon is not judged by other surgeons or by how Hollywood would judge that surgeon. A surgeon is judged by how many people he or she did not kill, all right? So that's very different. So that's the idea of who is the judge. And in the end, I tell people, who judges the expert? It's not another expert in the end. Who judges the other expert? Who do you think? Sorry? Time. Or a substitute for time, a lady called Lindy. Now, Lindy is what I start describing as a survival of things. Okay, what survives tends to have some pattern. Things that have been surviving for 20 years survive 20 more years. Non-perishable items. I'm not talking about individuals. Technology that's been around for 1,000 years, 1,000 more years. Okay, this chair, pharaonic Egypt, 3,251 years and 3/4 maybe. Okay, that was a throne before. You're supposed, the Romans didn't like you to sit on chairs. That was a throne, right? So technology and of course technologies can be destroyed by other technologies, like the computer, the desktop destroyed by the laptop destroyed by the iPad and stuff, the tablet. And the tablet effectively is, used to have tablets 6,000 years ago. So anyway, so Lindy, so time should judge. For Lindy to work, you must have contact with reality, a filter of reality working on it. So by now, you pretty much have an idea of how to frame things related to bureaucrats versus doers. And you realize pretty much that the bureaucrats are all going to fall in a category of looking the part, giving complicated stuff, because there is no Lindy that works on them. There's no contact with reality. There's nothing. So let me wrap up this first part by explaining the following. Let's go back to Darwinian evolution. How do restaurants improve in New York? Because a chef learns? No. How do they improve? Via bankruptcy. Okay? You want people to be subjected to failure, and better fail early than late. Because systems in biology don't learn via textbooks or brains. How do they learn? At the cellular level, via selection. So you need to have a lot of small variations and a lot of things going for systems to learn, for systems to improve. Okay? So the restaurants will never learn because the government puts chefs through a course to make them better. No. It learned via death. I mean, not death of a restaurant, not the chef, although sometimes, in some cases, it may be a recommended solution, all right? But I mean, I've had awful food before.